Welcome to the Lifestyle First podcast, discussing lifestyle medicine and making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. One question, 2 research reviews, and 3 actionable health tips, all centered around the Lifestyle First method, your blueprint for the 10 key routes of optimal health and happiness. And now your host, lifestyle medicine physician and coach, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hello and welcome. This is Series 3, Episode 8. And the theme in the Lifestyle First method we'll be exploring today is L, learning habits. So have you heard of the concept of the aggregation of marginal gains? Well, think about the British Olympic cycling team. Back in 2003, they hired a performance coach, Sir Dale Brailsford. Now, prior to that time, they had won only 1 gold medal in the Olympics, and that was way back in 1908. What Sir Dale Brailsford did was make a commitment to a strategy called the aggregation of marginal gains, which is simply the philosophy of searching for any tiny margin of improvement in anything you do. So he made small changes to bike seats, fabrics, massage gels, pillows, aerodynamics, and in 2008, the British Olympic cycling team dominated the Olympics with an array of gold medals. So by breaking down everything into its smallest parts and improving by just 1%, the aggregate improvement you get when you put it all together is immense. When people talk about success, there is rarely one defining moment. It's the sum of all the moments we choose to do things that little bit better. And so, the one question we'll be focusing on today is, what if we could be 1% happier, 1% healthier, and perform better every day? As always, there's 2 pieces of information to support the conversation, and this week it's 2 fantastic books which I would highly recommend reading if you really want to start making those micro incremental changes in your lifestyle that seem to evade you. And the books, well, they are Atomic Habits by James Clear and Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. So today, to explore the question, what if we could be 1% happier, 1% healthier, and perform better every day, I have with me Dr. Nilesh Sadhguru. Dr. Sadhguru Nilesh, he is a GP and a coach, and he's also certified in both occupational and lifestyle medicine. In fact, he may be the only person or one of a few people in the UK to hold both these qualifications. Nilesh is passionate about the interaction between happiness, health, and performance, and firmly believes in the transformative power of conversation and the importance of strengthening our inner connection. So Nilesh, over to you. Welcome, and perhaps you could start by talking about what influences our ability to not only change, but to make sustainable changes that stick.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I've got to draw on some of my great inspirations, and I believe in honouring my teachers. And one of my great teachers is called Jim Kwik. He's a memory coach into Hollywood A-listers and consults with Harvard University. And he talks about these wonderful 5 levels of transformation, which I wanted to go through with you today. And it's a very simple and easy way to think about transforming. And you can take it, for example, as the habit of reading. Let's say you wanted to read more. We all know how powerful reading is for our mind. So reading is the behavior. That's sort of the 4th rung on the level of transformation. That's the what. And then, it may be difficult for you to read if you're not in an environment that sets you up for reading. That's slightly lower down on the rung. That's the when and the where. Okay, so our environment, as I'll speak about a bit later, and we'll talk about some studies, is so incredibly important for behavioural change, especially sustainable behavioural change. As we go higher up the ladder of importance, we come to capabilities. So how do you actually read well? How do you read fast? That's going to be something that's going to make you help sustain the change. So capabilities is the how, behaviour is the what, environment is the when and the where. And now we get to the really fun and interesting bit. So this is where coaching comes in, which is our beliefs and values. It's something I absolutely love learning about, and something that is quite dear to my heart. I think we've all been privy to how beliefs can affect us in positive ways and negative ways. So beliefs and values is the why. Why do you actually want to read in this case? Is it because you want to learn something to help someone that you love? Maybe somebody's ill and you want to read some books that's going to help somebody that you love. And then right at the top, which is often missed out but is extremely powerful, is identity. Identity, which is a who. So we've got the who, the why, the how, the what, and the when and the where. And so for reading, that would be identifying yourself as a reader. I am a reader. And how do you find out about identity? Because if you're trying to make sustainable change, you might notice yourself saying, I'm not the kind of person that eats salad, or I'm not the kind of person who reads, or maybe, I am a swimmer. You identify with yourself as that. And identity is so incredibly powerful. James Clear, in his wonderful book, Alka and I have spoken about that already, his book, Atomic Habits. He says to change, all you need to do is two things. Number one, identify who you want to become. And number two, prove it to yourself every day with small wins. So that's just a simple 5-step process, again, from Jim Kwik, who's a big inspiration. And I hope you enjoy that. I hope you enjoy a simple way of working through.
I love that. I love that idea of that kind of pyramid. But what do you think is the common sort of gap? What do people miss out usually of all those tiers that you've described? Is it that sense of why? Because that for me is always so fundamental, the reason behind, and really getting to the nitty-gritty of why it is that you want to change something, do something, be something, think something. That for me always feels like really, really critical. And that positive affirmation, as you say, that kind of, that having that strong sense of identity. But where do you think the biggest gap is? Do people often just dive into doing and not think about the other things? Is that the reason that sustainable change doesn't happen, or is it something different?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on, Alka. It's so true, and this is the reason why I went into coaching. Is I just found human potential and human behavior so fascinating. It's the information fallacy. We learn about lifestyle medicine, which tells us that your health depends on your daily habits. Simple as that. Your health depends on your daily habits. But then, what causes people to choose habits that potentially could be harmful to the health? And that, as you're saying, spot on, is the why, or the identity. So your beliefs and values, or your identity. Yeah, I mean, that's something I come across a lot. I think some people can also have fluffy whys. I'm absolutely guilty of this. We all do this, right? Who's experienced that before, where you have a fluffy why? It would make me feel better. It would make me feel good. And that it's a good place to start. But really honing down on the really clear purpose, with clarity, with vision. I heard something amazing from a coach. His name's Rich Livkin, and he says you can only go somewhere that you're willing to go yourself. You can only go somewhere that you're willing to go yourself. And I think the point of that is that if you've never seen what could be possible, then it's very difficult to start envisioning a really clear purpose, a really clear why, a really clear identity. So that's why, going back to the James Clear quote, that's why it's so important to find out, who do you want to be? We are so lucky in this world at the moment, because we can watch podcasts, look at videos, go on YouTube, read books. There are so many people that we can gather inspiration from, and then we can prove it to ourselves with these small wins. So yeah, in summary, I think you're right. Beliefs and values, or identity, is another one I think people miss out on. A very, very simple hack for this is that if you're trying to flip your mindset, people often say, think positive, think like you're going to be a reader, or you're going to practice yoga. It's quite difficult to just flick your mindset and think positive. So we hear about thoughts, words, and deeds. And what I would recommend is flipping it around. If you want to flip your mindset, start with the deeds. Start with the deeds. Positively affirm your deeds with positive words. And then your positive thoughts will follow about whatever sustainable change you want. So deeds, words, and thoughts. Almost like jumping into action straight away, small things every day.
Because there is something about behavioural activation, isn't it? It's about doing the smallest thing you can possibly do that then activates you into further action. And that then, as you say, flips the thinking as well. We often do think of it the other way around, though. It is your thoughts that determine your actions, but actually taking action can also have that very, very positive effect, can't it? Really, but it isn't always as easy as you think. Actually, depends on the complexity of what you're trying to achieve as well. But that whole Johari window, that's that kind of quadrant. And I don't know what I don't know. So how do you envisage something that you don't even know is a possibility yet? And that can be quite hard.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is where our beliefs, our conditioning, what we've been exposed to. But remember something really, really important here is that beliefs, most of the beliefs that we hold are not real. Okay, so we all accept that the table I'm touching right now, wherever I go in the world, everyone would accept that that's a physical being, that's a physical thing at table, and it would have a different word in a different language. But if we spoke about marriage or love or, different beliefs that we may have, that can be perceived so differently throughout the whole world. So I think it's very important for us to realize that, that thing that may be stopping us is a belief, but that belief may not actually be of service to us or real. And there are ways, and I think more and more people are coming around to this. This is where coaching is so brilliant. There are ways for us to shift that very quickly and have real amazing effects for sustainable change and transformation.
Completely agree. I often say that the meaning of a thought is simply the meaning that you choose to attach to it. It doesn't come.
I love that.
It doesn't. Things don't come with meanings. You attach meanings, and they come from all sorts of directions and influences as well, for sure. But I think recognizing that is really important to start to change some of that meaning that we associate with things that have become so ingrained, often through our upbringing or through the people that we associate with, who's in that sort of inner circle that's your sphere of influence, can be really, really powerful. Even as you say, simple things like what are you reading? What is kind of feeding your mind and your soul and your thoughts sort of all the time is really very, very relevant to what thoughts then continue to infiltrate, aren't they? So definitely sort of what is there around you, that environment that you're talking about. Well, guess what? You have a say in your microenvironment. You choose what that actually looks like and feels like, don't you?
Absolutely. In fact, I just wrote a blog post on environment. We can talk about some of these studies actually now. It segues in really nicely. So when I was 8 years old, my father, my mum, my dad's work, and all of us moved to the Netherlands to go and work there. And I remember going into Schiphol Airport. This was in 1997. I went to the urinal and I saw that there was this little sticker of a fly in there, and it was a bit odd. Me and my brother had a little laugh about it at the time. And fast forward many years, and I read Richard Thaler's book, Nudge. And it spoke about this wonderful, how we can nudge ourselves to make positive behavioral choices, and how he worked with David Cameron, I think, and many other people across the world to working on this nudge theory, focusing on visual cues to prompt us into behaviors. And so the story about the fly sticker on the urinal in Schiphol Airport, it was developed by this designer called Ard Kaimboom. I hope I've said that correctly. I should know how to pronounce his name as I lived in Holland. But he placed a sticker on there because they knew that he was a lot of men were having a lot of spillage of urine in the toilets, and of course it was costing a lot of money and time and effort for people to clean up. So the idea is very simple, to put the sticker on there for people to focus their urine stream so that we didn't make so much of a mess. And the short of it is it reduced urine spillages by 50%. Amazing. There are so many great examples of this. And even recently I heard of a nice initiative in Oxford where all they did was paint on the side of a road a blue line and wrote on it, it takes 10 minutes to run to this landmark or 15 minutes to cycle to this landmark, and increase the amount of people running and cycling. So just nudging people into healthy behaviors.
but we're so influenced, aren't we? That bus that drives past with the advert on it, what we see when we go into the supermarkets. It's actually no wonder that we do find it quite hard to change our habits, actually,
Yes.
because the bigger environment isn't designed necessarily at the moment to support that at all, because of other influences, industry influences, economic influences. The health influence hasn't been huge, and I hope COVID is going to start changing that. As there's something really positive that comes out of this. There's that health messages start to be the strong ones that we start to hear and get influenced a lot more by, as opposed to the messages that are not doing that, having that positive change on us that we know does make a difference, really. So it'd be really interesting to see how this plays out over time. But yeah, 100% your environment is something that, and I think once you're aware that there's an influential level there, then you're going to be more tuned into what you want to be influenced by or not as well, aren't you? Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating research, actually. What else have you come across that would be helpful to know in terms of, somebody who really does want to make a change in their life? What's a good starting point? What are the things that people should sort of think about in terms of actual habit change? And there's all these theories about it takes 21 days to build a habit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, personally, my experience of that hasn't been that there's a number or a date stamp on habit change at all. A lot of it is related to so many other influences, the complexity of what you're trying to achieve, who's there kind of supporting you in your journey as well. But what sort of things have you come across that are quite helpful in that arena from those two books that we were talking about?
Yeah, no problem. This is something I really believe in personally, and it's through a lot of the habits that I've adopted. I've changed so many habits in my life, and I'm very much someone who self-experiments. So something really stuck out to me in BJ Fogg's book, and I think it's this whole principle of compassion. I think we need to be compassionate with ourselves first before we can grow and change. And he says people only change by feeling good. And I think that's a real, really important myth that we need to bust right now, is that you need to punish yourself into feeling healthy and feeling good, and you couldn't possibly be having a good time and be healthy at the same time, or be happy at the same time. I think there's a fallacy. We need to call it a brule, which Vishen Lakhiani calls a brule, a BS rule. I won't swear on this podcast. So that's another thing I think that's really important. Compassion is so important. I'm going to come back to identity again. So I think it's something that gets overlooked. And again, remember James Clear, he says, number one, focus on who you want to be. Number two, prove it to yourself every day with small little wins. But many of you, there's this wonderful researcher called Carol Dweck, and she teamed up with a researcher called Byron, I think, Byron. In 2011, they did this study about, who's going to become, who can we influence by the language we use to vote more in the US elections? And they just slightly changed the language on a poll that they did, i.e., are you going to be a voter at the next election, or are you going to vote at the next election? So to be identifies yourself as a voter, or are you going to vote? As in, that's depersonalizing it. It's not identifying with the principle of being a voter. And what they found was in that study was that the people who identified themselves as a voter were far more likely to actually vote. So start identifying yourself with something positive. And remember, when I say start identifying yourself, it's not just staring in the mirror and saying, I am a voter. It's starting to behave in a way with very, very small things that are congruent to that. For example, if we go back to the reading example, maybe you want to identify yourself as a reader. Maybe you don't have, the right kind of books ready to read. Maybe you need to go and purchase those books. That's the first step that you can do. I know that a lot of people read very well with a visual pacer or a bookmark. Maybe that's something that you need to go and get involved with as well. So start to take those very first few steps that help you identify with somebody that is a reader, a voter, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And and take it slow and have compassion with yourself when you're doing it, because these things do take time.
And I think with the compassion comes belief, doesn't it? Having that self-belief in yourself, that you have got that self-efficacy, that ability to achieve what you want to achieve. You almost have to see that kind of end point, don't you, and be able to kind of visualize it and see it and feel it. But really, I think the thing with values is that you really have to believe them. It's all very well writing, having a post-it note saying I am healthy, but you have to believe that you've got the capability to achieve that, so that when you do, I always use this example of opening that fridge door and they're staring at you as the apple and the chocolate. Well, actually, what would the healthy person choose?
Yes.
What do you want to choose when you're affirming the I am healthy? Then your choice becomes automatic.
Yes.
There isn't even a choice. Eventually, you don't even see the chocolate. I am healthy. You're going for the apple. So, and that comes from that initial belief that yes, I've got this. I am going to be that healthy person. In fact, I am healthy right now.
That's a beautiful example, and absolutely. Often we say with people who buys those foods, right? Because that's a really once we've built that compassion with people in coaching, and they often realize that actually that's maybe not the way that they identify with themselves, yet their behavior is slightly incongruent of that. And that can happen, and we understand that. But I think that, again, this goes back to something I really believe in, which is the inner connection. When you have a strong inner connection, i.e. your connection to your soul, to your purpose, who you are, what you believe in, then it's slightly easier to listen to that inner voice. Mm-hmm. But right now in the world, there is everything against you from listening to that inner voice. There's all the social, societal pressures, which we haven't spoken about. And that is a huge thing. People will rather choose to be sick together or to be choosing things that could be harmful but in a tribe than to be outside of the tribe. And that makes sense. That's a deep human desire. We all have to be connected. So, I think it's very important to just focus on that behavior that's congruent with who you are, but not to blame yourself for that, because it is difficult to listen to that inner voice in today's world. So
I love that thing about the kind of congruence and conformity. There's an experiment that was done, wasn't there, where they had some patients waiting in a doctor's waiting room, and there was one person who knew what was going on, but nobody else did. And whenever a bell rang, he stood up and then sat down again. And he did that every time a bell rang. And eventually the whole waiting room started to do that, because everybody felt that was an important thing to do and it must symbolize something. And everybody was getting up, but nobody knew why. No one questioned that why. And it was that need to be part of something that's going on around you and conforming to whatever else is going on without questioning.
Yes.
We do that quite a lot because of exactly that kind of social pressure to be the same, and actually to lose your identity, not to gain that sense of identity. We lose our identity in that sort of conforming space, don't we, actually? But again, I just wonder whether COVID has given us the opportunity to have some more space for that introspection that we really are craving and need, that slowing down of the pace of life that has been inflicted on us. I think for a lot of people has given some space for that inner voice to be heard, to that inner voice to be felt, to get some understanding and some curiosity about yourself and create that identity. Actually, I think that is again something that I'm seeing coming through this as well. Which,
I mean, I'm smiling so much, Elke, because you're using exactly the same words that I sort of feel and believe in it. It's been a relatively recent thing for me to start thinking about inner voice and a connection, but it's very important. I have a little rhyme that I share with you, which is the inner connection is about reflection, introspection, and a rejection of ego protection. So that's my little sort of side hobby, is a bit of poetry on the side.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's going to be on the post-it note next to my bathroom mirror now,
Oh, good. I have to remind myself of that. That's the reason why I do, because we are all often guilty to try and protect ourselves and try and protect ourselves from what we fear instead of being free. Everything I'm sharing with you is the self work that I'm sort of going through.
Amazing. It's amazing to go on your own journey as well, isn't it? I think that's really important as well. So then those elements that you're going through, you share with people.
And now here is your Lifestyle First prescription. Your 3 activating actions to take you from knowing to doing.
we could keep talking. I want us to move on now to the next part of the podcast, which is really my favourite part. It's all about really kind of blending everything that we've been talking about, blending the thought and the action, blending the medicine and the self-care, taking us from knowing to doing. I would love you to share just 3 health actions for everyone listening today.
I'll keep it nice and short. So number 1 is immerse yourself in who you want to become, or people that emulate who you want to become. So books, podcasts, videos, it's just a wonderful way of helping your brain light up the right connections with the people that you want to align with. So immerse, number 1. Number 2, think in detail about a habit. Think about the when and the where. This is about the environment, the when and the where. We know there are many studies that would show that will hugely boost your chances of being sustainable with that habit. And number 3 is, and this is a really fun one, and I think a lot of the Brits who'll be listening to this might feel uncomfortable with this, but I think I'm American inside this because I quite enjoy this. But number 3 is celebrate. And we know that dopamine, a neurotransmitter in our brain, is extremely important in wiring in that habit. So celebrate your small wins. I mean, often we have loads of small wins, but we don't celebrate ourselves. We don't celebrate those. And that often leads to us stopping. So yeah, the key thing is consistency.
Love that.
There we go. Immerse when and where, and celebrate.
Immerse when and where, and celebrate. And actually celebrate even just by yourself. We always think we need to celebrate with others, but actually it's that personal journey,
Yes.
By yourself. It doesn't have to be this kind of outward show of a big party. It's really that inner celebration that you need really to keep that motivation and sustainability. Love that. Really great.
That's exactly what I mean. You're celebrating with that inner connection, that inner voice.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I think those are 3 amazing tips that actually we can put into place pretty easily, actually. Start now is the message. I think. Thank you so much for that. There's just so much value in what you're saying and what you're doing. I'm sure people are going to want to find out more about you and what you do. So how can they get in touch?
Oh, well, I would love to love to hear from people, so please do send a message via Instagram. I'm at Dr. Satguru, or via my website, which is www.drsatguru.com. You can just hit the contact button and send me a message. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, perfect. That's amazing. Thank you. This has been a really inspiring conversation. You've given us so many gems to really think about, and I'm going to personally need to listen to this episode multiple times.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. Honestly, I've really enjoyed it, and we should do this even if it's not recorded again.
We want to keep talking 100%. Thank you so much. And I guess it just leaves me to wish you a happy, healthy day.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Lifestyle First podcast, making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and we'd love it if you'd be kind enough to leave a review. To learn more or to arrange a consultation, please visit www.dralkapatel.com. See you next time.